Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Red Hot Truth, a home for the broken where healing begins. If you're new here, I'm Michelle. Welcome. I help people heal their soul wounds after trauma and abuse and move into their God given purpose and destiny. And that process is often a journey through the wilderness where there's many trials, there's many tests, and it can be an overwhelming process. So having support on that journey is absolutely vital. Having people just to point you in the right direction. Most of your work will be done with the Holy Spirit in the secret place with the Lord, but there are times where you also need Him to bring people just to help you move to the next stage or to pull you out of a hole or to help sit with your pain. Sometimes we need that as well throughout this journey. And the Lord often brings people that act as bridges to help you get from one season to another, especially when you're at risk of total collapse, which we often are if we go through scapegoating, if we go through abuse, if we go through trauma. That's really hard. I mentioned that along this journey, there's going to be tests and triggers and things that come along to trigger your wounds and your pain. I believe sometimes the Lord allows something to come along just to kind of tip you into your pain. And then when you're in there, He will bring healing to that situation and then pull you back out. That's how I've experienced healing. And I also believe that the Lord will bring situations and people to show you how much you have actually grown. Yesterday, an old family member turned up at my door unannounced. I was like, what the hell? I was literally having like a lazy day. I collected my kids early yesterday. They had a half day and I just fed them. They did their homework. Then we all kind of chilled on the couch. Chris came home early because it was raining really heavily and he got soaking wet. So he was home at like 3 o'clock. I was just chilling on the couch, binge watching a series. And the house was kind of messy. I hadn't tidied up properly. And this is normally fine because we never have visitors. Like people never call to my house. So I'm like, it doesn't even matter if it's messy. It'll be fine till tomorrow. This person just landed on unexpectedly. There was stuff everywhere. There was even clothes on the stairs that I hadn't put into the wash basket yet. I was like, oh my God. I hate it when people call without giving us even like a 10 minutes notice, That's like a courtesy, 10 minutes. But the reason why this person didn't give any notice is because I ignored their text and phone call at Christmas, which I think makes it kind of obvious that I don't want to engage. I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. Not because I have an issue with this person. I really, truly don't have an issue with them. But when you're healing your nervous system and you're trying to get free after severe abuse and trauma, there comes a point where you don't want to see people from the past. They weren't there when I needed them the most. And that's not me blaming them. I'm not angry at them. I'm not mad at them, but I went through absolute hell. My worst fears came to life. As a child who was growing up in coercive control, severe abuse for years, I was always told if you ever tell the truth, bad things will happen. You will be punished. You will die. Other people will die. Nobody will believe you anyway. Everyone will think you're crazy. That's what abusers do to children. They make you believe that everyone will turn on you when you tell the truth. So for me, when I finally confronted and faced the abuse and I started therapy, that was like my worst fears coming to life. Now the truth is out. This person knows that I remember everything and that I'm actually dealing with it and processing it. So now that means everybody's going to abandon me. And that's exactly what happened because nobody actually came looking for me. Nobody called, text, came to my house then 4 years ago. Nobody checked on me. I was literally going through hell. I was actually in and out of psych at the time. I was on medication. I was barely coping every day. And I healed. I spent 4 years healing every single day to get stronger, to get better, to recover, to actually heal from severe complex PTSD, severe autoimmunity. And I kept facing rejection after rejection after rejection because my mother chose him, my sister chose him, the whole family chose silence and chose to stay in that system. Nobody came looking for me. And I did feel discarded, scapegoated, shattered, and broken. So then when this person turned up unannounced, to me, it just feels a little too late. It's like, I don't have any issue with you. There's no bad blood between us whatsoever. But to me, this isn't family. Somebody who turns up once every few years and hasn't been there for you throughout all the trials and hasn't taken the time to learn the full story or get to know your side of the story, and then comes in smelling of alcohol, asking me invasive questions that cross my boundaries after I've already closed the door on my past and cut all the soul ties. And I'm like, I'm done, done. There is no repair. There's no going back. It's over. And the questions she was asking me were invasive. They were projecting her own beliefs, her own pain, her own trauma. And to somebody who was less healed, like if 6 months ago, if she came at me with those types of questions, she would have completely re-traumatized me. But at this point, it didn't happen. Praise God, I was okay. I was able to handle this situation, but it still blew my mind that this even happened. Then I wasn't sure whether I was going to talk about it or not, but I looked at my phone right after she left, and my Bible app, the quote of the day yesterday, let me find it. Hebrews, my hands are shaking. Hebrews 13:16. And do not forget to do good and to share with others, for with such sacrifices God is pleased. So he does want me to talk about this, and not because I want to put her down or shame her, but because we need to understand as people on this healing journey what is safe and what is not. And this encounter yesterday wasn't safe for me and wouldn't be safe to most people on a journey like mine, because this person did invalidate me in so many ways and poked at wounds, and a less healed version of me would have been traumatized by that conversation. And I'm going to try and remember what was said. I actually did document it, and I have it on my laptop, so just bear with me. So I said she smelled like alcohol. I feel like this was a spontaneous decision. She was driving past the neighborhood and she was like, I'm going to call into Michelle today because I haven't seen her, and that'll be like my good deed for the year, where I pop into this person who's clearly alone and isolated, and at least she won't feel so alone if I call. It felt like that. I don't need you to do me any favors. I'm okay. If you're not consistently in my life, if you're not calling every week or every month, or if I'm not getting a text or a phone call from you ever, you don't need to call to me like 2 years later. It's okay. Like, I'm fine. I'm coping fine without you. Does anybody else feel like that about family that just randomly come by once every couple of years and you're like, hi? Like, to me, it's just weird. I don't get it. But I no longer value superficial connections. That's the thing. When you grow up in superficial, when everything around you is a lie, when on the surface everything looks perfect all the time, but behind closed doors you're being scapegoated, discarded, abused, Yesterday she said to me, oh, your mother loved you so much though. And she started going on as if she knew everything. And that did trigger me. I was like, are you joking me right now? I haven't heard from my mother for 4 years. Not one text. She has not even tried. She was like, why can't you go to family therapy and just try and make it work? The way she said it, as if it's just so easy. My mother would never go to therapy. Never. She would never suggest it. She doesn't want it. She doesn't want the accountability. She doesn't want to face the truth. She doesn't want to acknowledge what happened to me. If she faces the reality, the truth about my father, which is extreme abuse, if she faces that, then she has to leave him. She has to uproot her whole life. Everything will need to change. She's not willing to face reality. She's not willing to go through that level of change. She's not willing to fight for me. She wasn't willing to fight for my children. And that is the reality. And me having to spell me as the victim of this situation. And I don't call myself a victim too often. I'm very strong. I was victimized as a child from 3 years old all the way up until I moved out. And even then, he still had so much control over me up until I became a mother. A mother. I became a mother, and I realized that my autonomy is more important so that I can protect my children. Because what this man put me through, if there's even the slightest, tiniest chance that he would hurt my children in that way, then he does not get access to them at all. And I draw the line. And I say, no, you will not terrorize my children the way you terrorized me. You will not harm them like that. They will not go through abuse. I will protect them. I am their mother. My mother didn't protect me from you. And that's the bloody reality. Even saying it, I'm getting mad. There's obviously still some work to do here because I'm shaking. Talking about this, she did trigger me. Let's be real. She did. But she didn't traumatize me. I'm just working through it. And we're processing it together, So thank you for being here with me today. She started to project. She was kind of just lying there on my couch. She was like, if I had to go back and face all the bad things that ever happened to me, then I would not cope. And maybe you're healing too much. Maybe you're thinking about it too much. Maybe you just need to let it go. Why can't you just draw a line in the sand and forgive everyone for the sake of everyone? And she pointed at my children. And she was like, keep the family together. Like, that makes me mad when people say stuff like that, because I didn't ever want to walk away from my family. I didn't ever want to lose them. I didn't want my children to grow up without support. I would love if we were a normal family that could get on with things like that. But the reality, I was like, you don't even know the full story. You have no idea what happened. Have you ever gone and asked them these questions? Ask them, do they want to go to family therapy? Ask him why I walked away. Ask her why I walked away. Why are you over here questioning me? When I did everything to try and keep our family together for years. I was literally the parent of our home. I was the parentified child who took care of my parents and my sister. And then they all discarded me and turned their back on me when I took a stand and said, actually, the way I was treated was not okay, because I got the brunt of all of it. I actually looked her in the eye and I said, I still feel the imprint of that man's hand on my throat. I still feel silenced. I still feel pain in my body from the abuse that he dished out on me. I still struggle every single day. You have no idea what I've actually been through. None. I was a child that was left alone to suffer at the hands of a very dangerous man, while nobody came and rescued me. Nobody protected me, including my mother that you keep praising to the ground. It was so invalidating. But I spoke my truth. So I'm so proud. I'm like, whoa, I've never done that. In the 4 years since I've walked away, I have never spoken truth like that before. And I'm just proud that I did. This shows how much I've grown. This shows the work that the Lord has done in me. I will put a new spirit in you. I can't even think. I can't think of Bible quotes right now, but whoa. Like, whoa, Jesus. On one hand, I'm triggered and upset and mad. But on the other hand, I'm like so happy because I know how far I've come. I'm like, I spoke my truth. I took the zip off my mouth. I took his hand off my throat and said, screw you. And then I looked in the eye and said, you don't know what I've been through, and you don't get to question me. You weren't here, and you didn't grow up in that house with me. And you don't know. She actually, oh my God, she asked me my worst feared question ever. I've said it before, I used to be afraid to go to therapy because I was like, what if the therapist says that I am the problem and that I should just accept my family for who they are? That was my biggest fear. Well, what if they think that it is me? And she said that to me yesterday. And she didn't say it in a malicious way. She wasn't pointing fingers. She wasn't being mean. She genuinely didn't understand. And she was like, you don't know for sure that these people don't want you or that they don't love you. She said, how do you know that you're not the problem? And she didn't mean it as in, this is all your fault. She meant, how do you know that you're not perceiving the situation wrong? And to me, that question would have triggered like an earthquake in me for years. I would have absolutely panicked if somebody asked me that before. But I was so calm and so grounded and so anchored in my truth and in my reality and in the foundation that the Lord has laid in me and the roots. I feel how strong I am. And I said to her, I'm not the problem. I know I'm not the problem because I walked through hell in that family system for years. And I was targeted, group targeted. Afterwards, I was sitting, remembering a memory of us all at my parents' kitchen table having dinner. My grandfather was there, my aunts, uncles, cousins, parents, sister were all there. We were all having our dinner. And she wasn't there because at times we spent a lot more time with my mother's family, but my grandfather, my father's father, was always there as well. Growing up, I spent way more time with my mother's family than my father's. I remember this memory. We were all just sitting around the table eating, and everyone started to tease me. And then my mother said, oh, but Michelle's a Malteser, meaning that there's nothing in my head, that I'm just like stupid, you know? And everybody started laughing, including my grandfather. And it literally shattered me. I was so upset by it. And they were like, well, it's just a joke, you know? No, that's not a joke. You don't do that to a child. That is mockery. It is not okay. It's also a lie. I am not stupid. And I know I'm not stupid. I'm actually quite intelligent. My friend Liz tells me all the time, Michelle, you're so intelligent. And I'm like, thanks, Liz. Like, because my family used to literally call me stupid all the time. And I remember she would be a distant cousin. I used to work with her and I loved her. She was just lovely. We were so close when we worked together years ago. And I used to talk to her about it. I was like, I don't know why they're always putting me down. Why are they always picking on me? I used to constantly ruminate and stress and worry. The Lord showed me a vision of me sitting in the same position in fear, in stress, and in constant worry, and my mind constantly racing. And I was like that in every house that I ever lived in. No matter where I was, this pattern was within me where I just could not relax. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't calm down. I couldn't stop circling the thoughts because they were constantly targeting me. And I didn't make sense and I didn't understand. And I remember trying to make sense of it. And Eleanor was like, I just think you're so intelligent that you intimidate them. That's what she said. Like, I had never thought of that before. Like, it's not really about intelligence. I think it's more about emotional intelligence. Like, when you're spiritually sensitive, you're emotionally open, you see things that others don't necessarily see because your nervous system is sensitive and you just care about people. You see beyond the surface level stuff and you see when somebody's in pain. You see when somebody's struggling and you're the one that wants to go and pick them up off the floor, you know, because nobody ever picked me up off the floor. But when you're around people who live in denial, who are all surface level, it's all about the image and the pride and ego, and they're all like Leviathan energy. Leviathan wants to stomp people like me, people who are wide open and sensitive. They literally want to stomp on you and put out your light, and that's what they do. So this was happening all the time. How can you let something go that was still happening? If I went back, that would still happen. It would probably be worse. That's what people don't understand. This isn't a few bad memories when I was a child, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's not what I walked away from. This was years and years and years of chronic abuse, chronic gaslighting, chronic criticism, chronic abuse, bullying, group targeting. It was always being seen as the problem, the burden, the emotional one, the dramatic one, the sensitive one. People rolling their eyes at me all the time. People not being able to accept me for who I am. Not being able to be me in that environment because they're all so committed to their pride and their dysfunction. And I refused to comply to that system. But there's no way I can explain that to somebody who is part of the dysfunction, who also operates in a similar way. Because she also has pride. She also lives in denial. She also can't face reality. She also runs from her pain. She avoids it. She drinks. And that's okay. I understand what it's like to not be able to face your pain, to not feel safe enough to confront it. I lived like that for years. You need an element of safety in order to heal, and I understand that. For me, getting away from my family, living in a secure home, like getting our council house, that gave me an element of security because I wasn't afraid that somebody was going to come and just rip it away from me, which can happen when you're renting. So having some security, having Chris who works hard and provides, and having that distance, that actually gave my nervous system everything that it needed to finally relax and then to start releasing. All the buried pain, it started to release because I'm finally safe enough to do so. But she's still living in survival mode. She's still working. She is a single mother. So her situation is different to mine. And I understand why she is struggling to confront her pain or struggling to heal it. And maybe she never will. But I also see the pride in her. And I see that Leviathan spirit that causes people to project outwards instead of internalize or look inwards. And that's the issue. We have two completely different ways of coping and two completely different ways of dealing with reality. How are we ever going to understand each other? We don't understand each other. And when she mentioned my sister, I did feel my stomach recoil. That's the vagus nerve contracting, like my body saying, no, we are not going there. That is too much. The way she avoids her pain and can't deal with her stuff, that one is still very, very tender. That one still hurts. She went on to tell me that my sister is now in England. Again, being separated from her, not having her in my life, having to grieve that loss, having to try and find some level of acceptance and peace while worrying about her, while wondering, is she safe, not having any control, not being able to be there for her when things go wrong in her life. I practically helped raise my sister. I'm almost 12 years older than her. And to me, I was like a mother figure to her. And I absolutely adored her. So that loss in my life is huge. It's a relational rupture that happened as a result of triangulation and manipulation. And it absolutely broke me. And people don't understand the damage that sibling rivalry or family dynamics and how they turn siblings against each other. That is literally the most painful thing. I was like, you're not going to poke at that wound. I got angry when she brought it up. And she was like, I'm probably stressing you out right now. Am I? And I said, yeah, you are. And then shortly after that, she left. I don't remember the whole conversation. I don't think there was any malice in it. I don't think she was even blaming me. I think she was really trying to understand and she was trying to see if there was any way to salvage things because she thought that that would be in my greatest good. And for the sake of the children, for the sake of me, for the sake of the family, why can't we just all come back together? My parents don't even want that. That's the reality. They've never tried. They have never contacted me. They would never go to therapy. They would never apologize. They would never take accountability. They will never admit what happened. And that's the truth. You can't heal something that is never acknowledged. And like I said, this was ongoing all throughout my adult years. After I had my children, I got very sick. And they were still the biggest source of stress in my life. This family system that were always talking about me, always gossiping, weaponizing my illness, treating me like I was mentally ill, acting as if I was unstable all the time. I was in pain. I was in a lot of pain physically every day while trying to raise two very young children with no support while being the center of gossip all the time. It was so stressful. I don't need that stress nobody needs that stress. Nobody. I remember I had a best friend at the time. It was like a long distance friendship that I used to talk to every single day. And She said, who needs enemies when you have family like that? Because I used to confide in her every day. And when somebody is that close to me and they're seeing the triggers, the stress, the trauma, the overwhelm, the autoimmune reactions in me constantly, and they're seeing how upset I am all the time as a result of these people, and they're like, who needs enemies? People who know me, really know me, who have taken the time to get to know me, who see my heart, who know that I have pure intentions, that I would never hurt anybody. They see the pain, the trauma, the torture that I have gone through, and the battle that it has taken to actually heal and recover and get better. So when somebody comes knocking on my door that hasn't been there, that hasn't seen any of it, and that implies that some of it is my fault, no. This is where I draw the line. This is why I don't want anyone from my past in my life anymore. It's not because I am angry at you. It's not because I have a problem with you. It's because you are invalidating everything that I have had to fight. I had to fight for my life. And you are sitting here implying that this was somehow my fault when I was sadistically targeted and abused from 3 years old by a very evil man, whilst my mother turned a blind eye and then blamed me for it. And then they collectively worked together to silence me, the whole family. And you're sitting there implying that that's somehow my fault. How could that be my fault? Literally. Somebody comment and give me one example of blame there, because there is none. I was innocent. I was a child. And I was broken by these people over and over and over again. And then she said to me, are you healing too much? Are you thinking about it too much? No, my nervous system is releasing what it never was allowed to feel or release. There's parts of me that are still trapped in terror. There's parts of me that are still sick. There's parts of me that need rescuing. And that's what I'm doing. I'm becoming the parent that I never had. And I'm taking care of these parts of me that are broken and wounded. And by doing so, I'm literally becoming whole again, to the point that I'm able to sit here and tell you that I'm not the problem, which is absolute massive, gigantic progress. And I'm so proud of that. I am just so proud. So I guess if you're on your healing journey and you are facing these types of questions and this distortion and people from your past don't understand, the reality is you don't need to make them understand. That's not the goal. The goal is you standing in your power and knowing that this was never your fault. You were never the problem and you deserve to be free. So I pray that this blesses you today, guys, and I will see you in the next one. I love you lots. Bye. Remember to stay close to Jesus, because freedom is yours.